truth lies in bedtime stories from See-Through News. Marcus and Jemima. How I deal with people at parties who assume I have children. By George Hinchliffe. Episode 7. All is revealed, largely.
Why have we evolved to prefer stories to reality?
I think it is true that as humans we tend to like stories that are beguiling rather than drawing reasonable conclusions from statistical analysis of what happened. So, for example, when we're all sitting round a table and we've not quite finished the bottle of champagne, I can't imagine a circumstance where people would do that, but I understand that this sometimes happens. And people say, if you simply put a spoon in the top of the champagne bottle, it will stop the bubbles getting out. Why anybody would think that is beyond me, because bubbles clearly are going to come up in the liquid and go into the air, and so the champagne's going to go flat. But people persist in saying that you put a spoon in the top. And I suppose if you've had a few drinks and there's a spoon lying around on the table, but you can't get the cork back into the top of the bottle, this is a thing that might spring to mind. And I've heard no end of people telling me that this is a fact and it's true. I've proved it beyond a shadow of doubt that it's not true. It just doesn't work at all. I've tried to demonstrate it to other people, but they won't have it. They say, I think there are still some bubbles there, when 2 days later the thing is as flat as a fart, but nevertheless, this is what people do. And I think the story, because you can conceive of it, and if it were true, it would be something that's on a human scale, rather than some microscopic analysis or an exhaustive story about statistics and physics and chemistry and whatnot. People like it. And I think a lot of things are like that. Politicians do tend to reassure us and tell us all sorts of things. As you say, a lie repeated endlessly becomes something that a lot of people believe, especially if a high-status politician has repeated it. Whereas a sceptical person would say, that is a load of nonsense, I'm not buying that. But it does become a thing we believe, whether it's a significant thing about pollution or profit or who's running away with the proceeds from some nefarious scheme, or whether it's just some nonsense about bubbles in champagne. We, as a species, seem to want to believe the beguiling or interesting story rather than facing up to the fact. When people have asked me for my CV, resume, story of my life, I've said, oh, yes, I run Brown's Garage up Hare Hills Lane in Leeds. Just a small garage. We do MOTs, rebore and decoke, or at least that's what I used to say, when that would have been a perfectly reasonable thing to say. I've no idea about what happens to cars these days. I think it's more like computer diagnosis and install a new unit. But in those days, rebore and decoke sounded quite credible. And then at other times I've told people that I'd been a professional wrestler, but I was looking for something else. I'd saved up the prize money, so there was no great urgency. And at one stage I'd been an unarmed combat instructor. Of course, that was when I was in the armed forces again. But that was not the version of the metaverse which led me to, what was the story? I can't remember what happened now. The dishonourable discharge. There was no honourable or dishonourable discharge. But indeed, when people say, so where did all these children feature in the story, I can say that it happened over several years. And from Marcus right through to Micah and Baz, there were a lot of children.
So just to be clear, it was not just Marcus and Jemima, and we've called this series Marcus and Jemima, but actually there were many more children.
This is what I said, yes, and when people ask me for the truth, I've said, indeed, there were a lot of children, 13 children altogether.
So can you just go through their names?
Marcus, Jemima, Clytemnestra, Hubert and Walter. Oh, I missed out Lily, Wayne, Taylor, Warren, Skye, Augusta, Micah and Baz.
So you really have 13 children?
No, I was lying.
If you enjoyed Marcus and Jemima, please try our other The Truth Lies in Bedtime Stories podcast series, all of which are also entirely true, largely. Marcus and Jemima was written by George Hinchliffe, who also composed the series' music. The series was produced and mixed by SternWriter. The Truth Lies in Bedtime Stories is a See-Through News production. See-Through News is a non-profit social media network with the goal of speeding up carbon drawdown by helping the inactive become active. For more, visit seethroughnews.org. Thank you for listening.